Good morning. Thank you for joining us. We're delighted to have you at the Maxim Group TMT conference here in June 2024. We're kicking off with Creus Moreira, Chairman, CEO of SealSQ Corp. And you might have heard of them, or you might have heard of WiseKey International, who Carlos is also the founder, CEO, chairman there as well. So maybe if we could start off, Carlos, give us a little bit of introduction about yourself and, where did SealSQ come from?
Thank you, Matthew. A pleasure to be with you again. So my background is cybersecurity. I served 16 years of my career with the United Nations. I was an expert on the UN on cybersecurity. And then in 1999, I founded WiseKey, which is a Nasdaq-listed company, WKEY, which is a Swiss company handling mainly public infrastructure and cryptographic capabilities to secure transactions, right? So SealSQ is a spin-off of WiseKey. We're spinning off in also with a Nasdaq listing last year in May. And it's a semiconductor company developing a next generation of post-quantum microchips and working in two, what we'll call very innovative fields. One is crypto tokens to establish machine-to-machine transactions, and DPIN, decentralized physical infrastructure network, which is the capability of moving legacy infrastructure, airports, hospitals, cities, to a decentralized Web 3.0 architecture. So this is a huge movement towards decentralizing, because decentralizing, you increase security, you increase performance, you reduce carbon footprint, and it's the new trend. So our company has assets that allow to solve that very, very important and recurrent issue. Yeah. Sorry, Matthew, I lost your voice.
Apologies, I was on mute. So if you could maybe talk a little bit about, what products what is SealSQ selling today? What is its primary solution that's driving revenue today?
So we sell semiconductors. We are a design company on semiconductor. There's a lot of semiconductor companies that they are reselling or readapting. We design the chips. So we have something like 150 patents on designing chips that allow basically to authenticate an object. So objects, IoT devices do not have chips and do not have identity. So a QR code sometimes is the only thing they have. And this obviously creates a huge threats because if you penetrate into one of those objects without security, you compromise everything that an object is connected to. Imagine a video camera in a hospital, or a pump insulin machine, or a logistic object in an airport. So the securing object has become a major endeavor. There's actually in the United States what they call the Cyber Trust Mark, which is a federal recommendation, but now it's going to become compulsory that not every company that connects anything to the internet needs to have that secure, trusted mark as a way to guarantee that that object that they are connecting will not compromise the rest of the object. So it's liability now being embedded into this process, right? Because if you put in the market a non-protected object, you might be liable for the damage that object can create in the infrastructure. So we sell semiconductors. We sell a lot of them. We have something like 1.7 billion semiconductors already sold in the history of the company. And we are selling an average of 100 million semiconductors per year, growing 25% per year. So those semiconductors are 3 generations. They have what we call the legacy generations, which are semiconductors and they only protect the identity of the object. So they are passive. Imagine watches in Switzerland, 1 million watches have that identity. Imagine a bottle of very expensive wine. Imagine a perfume. So everything which is proving the authenticity of the object has a microchip, and that microchip with NFC technology collects the identity. So that's one generation. The second generation, which is a bit more sophisticated, is semiconductors then connect not only secure, but connect. It means that you can, as I mentioned, the camera can connect to another camera and only connects to the camera if they have a security element on the other camera. So that's the second generation. And the third generation, which is the one we are working on and it will be available next year, is post-quantum chips. So those chips have a much higher security. They can defend a quantum attack. And in plus of being chips that they connect, they can also transact. So imagine a car, an EV car, securing the connection with a plug when you transfer electricity, but at the same time, using tokens to pay for that electricity that you're charging to your car. So those are next generation chips. Then they become what we call TIoT, transactional IoT. Allows basically an object to become smart, intelligent, and conduct its own transactions. And this is a very big market emerging, especially as the decentralized physical infrastructure network is creating an ecosystem of those decentralized chips. So those are the three areas. This is what we sell. In plus of that, we sell software as well, as chips might need to have other layers of security, like for instance, Matter compliance, Matter, MATTER. It is a certificate that you need to acquire in order to connect something in your home. And you have a Ring camera or a smoke detector. They need to be Matter compliant now. We provide a Matter certificate, which is then embedded into the microchip. So as we move forward, those microchips are becoming more transactional, and there's where recurrent revenue comes, right? It's the razor and blade business model. You buy the chip, and then you buy services that allow the chip to optimize its performances. So those are the two drivers of the revenue now. Next year, revenue will be expanded by other things that we are doing, like OSATs, building OSAT centers. And we have good progress on there. We can talk maybe later. And also on SealCoin, which is the crypto token that has been developed. We are actually testing now in a real environment between partners. Then they are now testing SealCoin as a way to obtain services from one object to another. Let's say one object wants to buy data from another object because they need that data to compute AI capabilities. So that data will be acquired using SealCoin. Or a connected car wants to pay the parking meter, and then you don't want to leave the car to do that with your credit card. You pay directly from the car. So all the payments of the objects, which is a very big, what you call machine-to-machine economy, will be possible through SealCoin.
Thank you. I want to go back to the CyberMark thing that you mentioned. It sounds like government's starting to be a little bit more refined in how they're applying cybersecurity requirements to network objects. Is that the right way to think about that CyberMark?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it's very similar to an FIA certification for medical products. You know, what the government has realized that an object is not only breaking your data or stealing your identity, it actually can compromise the security of the user. You know, imagine somebody hacking a connected car and accelerate the car or break the car in the middle of the highway, or lose your control on the car. So what they are realizing that there are several industries like transport, like the medical industry, where you have important data and objects, and they are getting connected on hospitals to the internet. And if a hacker gets into those objects, they can kill a person, right? So in the same spirit, then you're not going to put a medical pharma product without testing, because that pharma product can kill people before even prove its efficiency. So the governments around the world, it's not only in the United States, but also here in Europe, they are moving towards regulating those objects as it can become dangerous for consumers. So there's a consumer focused protection program that says that you have to have at least those minimum requirements, like having a chip on your object, like having a certificate, be compliant with Matter or the Cyber Trust Mark, as a way for the government to feel comfortable that you're not compromising safety in the country. So that's good positive industry move, because before governments did not necessarily enter into this. There was no, there is always a trend not to regulate anything in some countries. But when you're dealing with safety, obviously regulation is required. I mean, you have a regulation for driving a car in the middle of the street. You need to have a regulation in the fourth industrial revolution. Cannot be a chaos.
I just want to make sure I understand it a little bit further, but just from a fundamental perspective, it's going from, a network thing doesn't have to have an identity, so sort of anything goes, to, objects have to be identifiable and identified to sort of participate in the network. So it's going from like, anything goes to kind of a more curated, controlled setup. Is that reasonable?
I mean, you can think about a website. You have an SSL certificate in the website, and proofs that that website is HTTPS, that this is actually a genuine website, and the information between the site and the user is going to be encrypted, and you're not going to be disclosing personal data while you're talking to the website. So the same spirit on that SSL certificate that applies to websites applies now to objects, right? So the cyber trust mark is an SSL for objects, if we can simplify like that. I mean, it basically puts guarantees to the consumer that you will only use objects or you will only install objects and they have that level of certification, right? I mean, the same way that if I want to make a payment, I'm going to make sure that HTTPS is what is available because otherwise I risk to lose my money by sending a fake website, right? So imagine the same thing will apply here. If you want to connect a camera at home and that camera doesn't have a secure element and a chip and a certificate, which is provided by a third trusted party, that could compromise the security of your home, right? That obviously before in website was easier because we have 10 years, even 20 years of track record. In object is new, right? So this is a new problem that has been generated by the fact that we are connecting more things to the internet. Before we only connected phones, and phones to have their own identity capabilities, so you don't need to expand that. But when you're moving to a camera or a smoke detector, the manufacturers do not have any conscience on security. Basically, they don't even know what the security is required for that object. So that's an evolution that is happening now and not before.
You touched on OSATs, and I know we've seen a lot of press around governments trying to bring semiconductor supply chains and manufacturing in onshore and domestic, and with some government spending around that. Can you talk about, is that something that you can get involved in, or are you involved in that process?
Yeah, for sure. So we have an OSAT operation already in France, in the southern part of France, which is at the same time a design center. So the thinking is, as you say, is governments realizing that, and that actually COVID helped a lot to reach that conclusion, that in case of supply chain disruption, everything stops. You need if you want to buy a BMW, you have to wait now a year, because the chips were not available, and companies revenue dropped drastically during COVID because they couldn't get semiconductors. So in case of a major disruption, whether it's another, God forbid, a COVID or a China attacking Taiwan, imagine the consequence that will have, on an earthquake like happened just a few months ago, a massive earthquake that will paralyze basically the entire industry, right? So the damages are phenomenal damages. We have clients that they are using our chips, and they're saying if you don't give for chips, something like $6 billion on transactional revenue will be compromised because we are not able to sell our routers. So the solution for that is decentralization. Means that some governments are putting a very important budgets. In Europe, you call that the E-Chip Act, which is a $45 billion funding available for companies like us that decentralize design and production capability at national level. The United States has the similar, the E-Chip Act in the United States, which is even bigger, it's $100 billion. And it is divided by three groups of companies that they provide fabs. So those are the big guys like Intel in Arizona. They built their own fab. They use actually the federal grant for that. But that's a very big operation. It's a several billion-dollar operation. A fab is between $6 and $20 billion product project. Then you have the second layer, which is companies. Then they provide things to the chip, packaging, testing. So that's another very big part. And then is the third area where we sit, which is the OSAT, which are companies that they have design capability. They can manufacture the chips in the fabs, and they are located in that territory, because that's the fab needs company like us, right? Otherwise, there's no business. And they have the focus on cybersecurity and post-quantum and everything, which, by the way, this is a NIST recommendation, right? NIST has developed a working group, which we are part of it. It's only 11 companies. And we are on that working group working towards the post-quantum chip. So what we do is that we team with the government, and we create joint ventures in different territories that become the OSATs. The good news for us is that the OSAT buys back from us technology, right? We provide professional services, we provide machines that allows them to personalize the chips, and we provide IP and license for operating on our behalf in that territory. The advantage of the OSAT is that it allows you to reach a different type of customers than you might not necessarily be able to reach from a centralized location. For instance, we announced a project in Spain with the Spanish government. Spain is very strong on solar panel technology. They are putting chips on solar panel with us, and solar panel companies now want to also use SealCoin as a way to be able to provide energy machine-to-machine transactional backbone, right? So solar panels can sell each other energies onto the ecosystem of all things connected to those solar panels. So this is a know-how Spain has, and that allows us to enter into that. We also created SealSQ US, which has been incorporated in Arizona. And the reason for Arizona is Arizona and Colorado are one of the two major hubs now in the United States on semiconductors, becoming like the semiconductor valley. Being there, especially with our technology and cybersecurity, allows us to maximize the investment being done already in semiconductors, because semiconductors, some people are just making semiconductor, but they are not making secure semiconductor, which is our focus, right? So I believe that obviously you might need 4 or 5 OSATs around the world, another one in Asia. We are looking into Japan. And those OSATs then get interconnected between themselves. So the best practices in one country are used in another country, right? So the Spanish solar panel model will then immediately be injected into the knowledge base that we will do in Arizona and back again into Switzerland or France. So that's the way it works. But it's good revenue for us because it allows us to expand territorially and become bigger, become global, right? As those things later can also develop. The beauty on those OSAT is not only semiconductors, everything goes into the semiconductor. Analysis of data, using AI to provide predictability analysis with the data you collect at the object level, micropayment using crypto coins. I mean, all that new convergence of technologies are crystallized in the semiconductor.
Great. That sounds very interesting and like a great opportunity. I was hoping you could touch a little bit about that new generation chip. I believe it's RISC-V, RISC-V architecture. It's totally different than your prior generation and has a lot more capabilities. You touched on post-quantum. Can you talk about the process of designing that, and just how much more powerful is it than kind of your prior generation that's generated kind of the result you have?
So this is the bet by the company to move RISC-V, because RISC-V is started on the PC, and now it's coming into the object, and because the acceptability of RISC-V is universal, we believe that it's going to be much easier to create critical mass of chips when you're working on a universal platform. RISC-V also has open source type of component, means that everybody we can open the source to partners, and they feel more confident, right, to just buy a chip from somebody and depend and create dependencies of that group. The industry analysts are saying that this RISC-V could also challenge in the future the new graphic chips, right? Like NVIDIA's of the world, because NVIDIA builds a model of centralized power. So everything in a very massive data center with billions of dollars investment that is only possible for very wealthy multinationals that they will buy this equipment. And everybody needs that because that model of creating NVIDIA/AI dependency will only satisfy big players, and that means the rest of the world, including the rest of many states, will be disadvantaged and disconnected from that wealth creation because the concentration is massive. So RISC-V challenged that because you have a decentralized power. So one GPU might be X amount of power that maybe is counterbalanced with 10,000 RISC-V chips, right? So we believe that RISC-V is going to challenge graphic GPUs, and is going to allow decentralization of AI, which is a major concern. AI needs to be decentralized, cannot be centralized in one location or on a few companies. You need to provide, AI is like electricity, right? You need to let anyone enjoy about the benefits of AI. Otherwise, it becomes dangerous, right? If it's only a group of people controlling AI. So I think RISC-V, if it's a massive adoption of that chip, will allow the chip. So what we are doing, we have already the chip. The chip has already been developed. We always say May will be the date and the chip will be developed. So we have a chip already. We are testing the chip now. So the way you do that is by teaming with companies and they have quantum capability to trying to break the chip. So we are in that phase now. I cannot disclose the name because we are on the NDA, but those are very big companies and they have quantum capability to develop a scenario of a quantum attack, and then the chip answers that attack. And once we are 100% sure that it cannot be a break, then we go into the certification process, which will take something like 6 months. And the chip will be commercially available beginning next year. The chip is also TPM. TPM there are not many TPM vendors. There's about 5 or 6 vendors. So that means that chip could compete very one-to-one with ARM or NXP or the big players, right? Because they are going into a different road. So we are very excited on this new generation chip that will also boost big time the OSATs, because the OSAT will then be able to work with quantum technology, which is getting there. And quantum has another layer of complexity because as now chips can be breaking and you can enter the security of the hospital, in the future a quantum computer can break all the chips, including credit cards. So you're going to have a period where companies, they're going to have to move from existing chip to the new chips because you don't want to wait the last minute when you have a quantum capabilities and then somebody can attack you with a quantum computer, right? So it's a very interesting progress. We have great people. We are working with universities that they are quantum universities like École des Mines in France, which is a leading institution. Then they are helping us also on the analysis. And in the United States with the very large groups. So very exciting development, which I think is going to boost big time our revenue because those chips, they're not necessarily more expensive than the current chips, but they are much better protection capability.
We are just about out of time. So do you have any closing remarks for investors that are new or somewhat familiar with the story?
No, I mean, for investors, what we always say is that maybe investors don't realize yet the importance of semiconductors, especially in this current era where semiconductors are becoming the epicenter of all transactions, goes around the semiconductor. If you don't have semiconductor in your portfolio, you're actually compromising the rest of the cybersecurity investment you might have. And there are not many semiconductor companies with a markup, right, available for investors to invest. Especially semiconductors is a European invention. People sometimes forget that the big companies now in the United States like NXP or ARM, they were UK company, Netherlands company before, a small company like we are in terms of valuation, but they got very big when they went to the United States. So that we are in that journey now. The good news is that we have amazing technology, and we are sitting in a very strong cash position that allows us to be there for a long time without the need to sell or do anything of that kind. And we announced a good result last year, growing 25%, $30 million revenue. So the company is getting very solid for the next jump that I believe is going to be phenomenal once we have those semiconductors ready to be sold.
Perfect. Well, Carlos, it's been great catching up with you and hearing the latest from SealSQ. It was great 2023, and look forward to seeing what you do with these post-quantum capable chips and beyond.
Thank you very much, Matthew. All the best.
Thanks.
Good to talk.